Praise the Lord, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I pray that all of you are doing well on today, that you guys had a beautiful day. Just grateful to be here. God is just so good. It's cold over here, but God is still good in spite of. So I'm going to share a testimony on today, talking about my toxic living environment that I was living in, and pretty much what I dealt with, how God delivered me, and yeah, so that's what I'm going to talk about on tonight. So first I'll say, 2 years today made 2 years for me since I was forced out of a toxic living environment. November 19th, 2022. So literally today made exactly 2 years. So when I first started living in this environment, it wasn't toxic in the beginning. So I was living there for a total of 9 years. So in the beginning, from 2013 to 2019, it was fine. But then once 2020 came all the way up until I was forced out 2022, that's when it started becoming toxic and, abusive verbally, mentally, and emotionally. So it was a lot. It really was a lot being in a toxic living environment. It was times where I would literally stay back at work, just so I didn't have to go home. That's how bad it was getting there. There would be times, where I would go in the kitchen and the one of the persons that was there would literally be yelling and screaming at me and cussing at me. They was calling me outside of my name. They called me retarded and some other names like cuss words and stuff like that. And so it was really unpeaceful. They had locked me out the house like 2 and 3 times. Like they didn't want me there. Like for the last 2 years between 2020 and 2022, the living environment turned toxic. It was pretty much a toxic environment, and I wasn't wanted there. I wasn't wanted there. And one of the songs, that I would be listening to, I believe it's the who I am, who you say I am. And pretty much that song is, saying like, I I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. So that's just a little bit of the song. Hello, for those who are just joining. So that was a little bit of the song that I was saying, when I was living in that toxic living environment. So I just wanted to encourage those who are living in a toxic living environment. So feel free to share this video because I know there are people out there that are living in toxic living environments and they probably could use some encouragement. And so when I was living in that toxic living environment, I didn't have nowhere else to go. So I just had to pretty much deal with the toxicity there. Like I said, one of the persons there was calling me outside of my name. They was yelling and screaming at me. And, I had to realize that it wasn't, a personal thing, but it was the spirit. The spirit in them didn't like the spirit of God, that was in me. Because during that time, I was praying. I still was praising God, still was worshiping God, still was thanking God. Like I literally was praying and just crying out to God to get me out of there, for deliverance, for a breakthrough. It definitely was not easy. It was not easy at all. But God was there with me the entire time. Like the entire time, God was there with me. He never left my side, never. Like I'm just so grateful. So as I'm continuing to be at this toxic environment towards the end, which is in 2022, like right before I was forced out and, didn't have nowhere to go and had became homeless. On November the 1st, 2022, I had got a text from one of the people that were living there that was pretty much saying I had to be out of their house by March the 1st, 2023. So when I saw the text, I was praying. I was like, Lord, you got to make a way because I don't have nowhere else to go. And I was like, well, I got a few months. Maybe I can be able to save a little bit of money the best way I can and, figure things out. And I thought, I was going to figure it out. But while I was trying to figure it out, God had already figured it out. God had already made a way. So November the 19th came. So this is about 2 weeks later. November 19th, 2022. I had went to the laundromat. It was a Saturday, the Saturday before Thanksgiving in 2022. I had went to the laundromat, went to go wash my clothes, and I came back and the door was locked. And I couldn't get in the house. The string was locked, everything was locked, and I didn't have a key to the string. They had only given me a key to the regular door, so I couldn't get in at all. So I was ringing the doorbell, ringing the doorbell, ringing the doorbell, and the person would not let me in the house. And they came to the door. They was like, you ain't getting in here, and they called me, a certain type of name, a cuss word. They was like, you ain't getting in here, blank. And then they had closed the blinds out on me. It literally was like cold. It was cold. And so I was texting somebody else that, lived in the home, but they weren't even responding to my text. I don't think they was home at the time, but they weren't responding to my text. So I'm trying to see, what I'm going to do. Like, I have nowhere else to go. So I'm just in the cold. I had got to call one of my best friends, and she was able to pick me up, and I was able to spend the day with her, for that day or whatever. And then later on that day, I had later on that day, I had a random we had got, oh no, not random, we had to get a domestic escort so I could get my belongings, out the house or whatever. So then after that, I was homeless. I was homeless after that. And it was hard. It was like one of the hardest seasons of my life. But I just thank God. Even though I was homeless, I still thank God. I still thank God because He got me out of there. He answered my prayers. I was praying for a breakthrough. He got me out of there. It wasn't the way I was expecting to leave. It definitely was a very traumatic end. But He got me out of there. And I had peace and I had freedom. And I just couldn't thank God enough. Like, I couldn't thank Him enough. Like, God is just so good. He is just so good. He is just so good. So I just wanted to hop on here, and I just want to encourage those, that are living in toxic environments, that God is able to deliver you. God is able to set you free. He is able to bring you out of those toxic environments. And when you're living in a toxic environment, keep praying, keep worshiping, keep praising God. Don't allow, the enemy to steal your joy. And also, I had to plead the blood of Jesus over my mind because of the names I was being called. And it was a lot of anxiety was happening, because of the environment that I was in. And it just was taking a toll, on my mental stability as well, and just as bad as, that one person didn't want me to be there was just as bad as I didn't want to be there. But it wasn't that that person didn't want me to be there. It was that the spirit inside of this person didn't want me to be there, because that person saw the presence of God that was living inside of me. That the presence of God was in me, and the spirit inside of this person could not stand me. So that's what it was. It wasn't a personal thing. It was the spiritual fight, a spiritual battle, spiritual warfare or whatnot. Keep in mind, this person did not really believe God either. So all of that adds up together as well. So yeah, that's what happened, that's what happened. But I just thank God, I'm in a better situation now, and I'm not having to deal with that toxicity anymore. And I'm just forever grateful. Like, God is just so good. He is just so good. Like, I didn't see no way out. Like, I didn't have the money or anything. I didn't have the money to move out on my own or to get a place or anything like that. I couldn't afford it. I was only working 8 hours a week or whatnot, and I still am to this day. So, but God has been providing. Like, God has shown me it don't even matter. It don't even matter what you work. It don't even matter what you can't afford, because God is just always providing and providing and providing. And I just feel like, all since then, Thanksgiving has just really hit different for me. It has really hit different because, 2022 Thanksgiving, I was homeless. I wasn't expecting that, and then 2023, God blessed me, to have permanent housing. So I'm just forever grateful. Like, I cannot thank God enough. Like, I just cannot thank God enough. Like, God is just so good, and all the glory and all the praise, it all belongs to Him. So I just want to encourage those that are living in a toxic environment to keep your head up, to keep the faith, to keep believing God, to know that God cares about you and that He sees you, and He is able to provide a way of an escape for you. He is able to do it in His time, and then you will have a testimony to share, with people that are dealing with toxic living environments. It's just not, it's not easy to be living in a toxic living environment. I even worked at a toxic work environment before, and I remember praying and crying out to God to get me out of my last job that I was working back in 2016 all the way until 2021. But it didn't become toxic till like 2017. But as the years went on, it had just got worse and worse, and it was just to the point where I had to report it to HR. And I was like praying and asking God, crying out to God for a breakthrough. I literally would be at work and I would go in the bathroom and I would be crying, like praying to God to get me out of there, because that's how bad it was. And it was taking a mental toll on my health. And this was my work environment. And God, he got me out of there. Like I said, it wasn't the way I was expecting, because once I had reported stuff to HR, what was going on there, to HR in January 2021, the end of January, that's when they pretty much took me off the schedule. Like, I was still on the schedule, but they stopped giving me hours. And then after that, they pretty much fired me or whatever. So after that, I was out of work. I was out of work from February 2021 all the way until August, when God opened up another door for me to work again. But during that time, he provided. Like, I was getting more money than I was getting at that job anyway. And it may seem like it was bad, but it was a blessing in disguise, because once God, released me, I had freedom and I had peace, and I just can't thank God enough, So then once that was done, I was in my living toxic, because this was 2021 when I was released from there. Keep in mind, my home environment was becoming toxic in like middle of 2020, June, July 2020. So then once God released me from my toxic work environment in February 2021, I was still in my toxic living environment. So I just thank God, for how he did that, so that way I wasn't in a toxic work environment and a toxic living environment. But when I was out of work for that time, that means more time at home. And that's when my living environment was toxic. So that was not making it any better. That was not making it any better, because now you're at this toxic living environment all the time now, because now you're out of work, especially during the pandemic in 2020, when a lot of things were shut down. Like the job that I had back then, our job had closed March 2020, and they didn't open back up. I think they opened back up maybe the end of March, but they didn't put me back on the schedule and give me hours until August. So I was at home all that time. But again, God was still providing. I didn't miss a meal or anything like that. So that was nothing to worry about. God has always provided. So I'm just like, thank you, Jesus. And even during the time when I was living in my toxic living environment, I was just thanking God that I did have somewhere to go at times. Because like I said, I would literally work. I would get off work at 12:30, and I would literally just stay back until like almost 5 o'clock in the evening, just so I didn't have to go home. I would be off the clock though, I would be off the clock because I had already gotten off at 12:30. I would clock out and I would stay back after work just so I didn't have to go home. That's how bad this environment was getting. I didn't even want to be there. I would find ways to avoid home. And for me, that was to stay after work, to get off at 12:30, clock out, and stay right after until almost 5 o'clock, just so I didn't have to be there. That's how bad this environment was getting. It was scary. It was becoming fearful. I didn't know what this next person, was going to do. I would have, it was getting to the point where I would literally lock my door, at night before I would go to bed, because I just didn't know, like, this person was just, I know that they had like personal issues, and they was taking their, personal issues out on me. And I'm pretty sure other people as well. And it was a lot. It was a lot of times where I would go in the kitchen and, this person would be yelling and screaming at me, for no reason. I haven't even said a word to you, but I'm coming in the kitchen to make something to eat or whatever I'm going to do, make something to eat. And they're yelling and screaming. They would say things like, oh, you don't pay no rent here. You don't pay no bills here. You don't do nothing around here. I don't want you here. Your parents didn't want you. Your family didn't. All of that, negativity stuff. And that was nobody but the enemy as well. Like they said, this person said some hurtful things for sure. They definitely said some hurtful things. And the thing is, I was paying rent. I was paying what they was asking for. First, it was $200. Then once we moved to another location, it was $300. And that's how much I was paying. I was paying what y'all had asked me to pay. So I just was feeling like if y'all wanted more rent, why didn't y'all ask me for more rent instead of talking about, oh, you don't pay rent, you don't do this. And then the trash the trash. They wanted somebody to start paying the trash, and I think that was like 30 something a month. So then I started helping out on that. But then this person was still saying, yeah, you don't pay no rent here, you don't pay no bills around here, you don't help out around here, you don't do this, you don't do this. And it was just like, it was so much, and it was getting frustrating. Like, most times I would try to be quiet, I would try to be silent, go in the kitchen, mind my business, do my thing. But then it was times where I couldn't even resist it. Like, I was just getting upset, and I wasn't cussing or anything like they were doing, but I was still like talking like, no, I do pay rent here. I pay $300 a month. That's what you guys asked for. You guys asked for $300 a month, so that's what I'm paying. I do things around here. So sometimes I would talk back. Like I said, it was just getting to the point where it's like, I haven't did anything to you. All I'm doing is coming in the kitchen so I can get my food. And this was most times. This is how it was most times. It was times where I would literally walk towards the kitchen and I would see them there, and that means I had to pretty much turn around and go back to my room, because I didn't have to, but to avoid the argument or the debate or whatever, it was best for me to wait until they left the kitchen. Like, I literally could leave the kitchen and they literally would be down the hall at times, and they're still going on and on. My door is shut, it's fast, and I'm in my room. Conversation should have been way done, but they were still going on and on and on. You see what I'm saying? So it was just pretty much nonstop, and it was just no peace. It was no peace at all. It was definitely no peace. For sure, it was just no peace at all. And when they were saying, you don't do things around here, like, as far as like cleaning up. And at first I wasn't really doing much around there. So then once this person said that, I started doing stuff. I started washing the dishes, I started sweeping the floor, I started doing the stuff that I know how to do. But then this person would still say, you don't pay no bills here, you don't pay no rent here, you don't do nothing around here. And so I'm like, well, I do stuff. I wash the dishes now. I'm sweeping the floor. I'm doing what I know how to do. But they still would say, oh, you don't do this, you don't do this, you don't do this. So it was frustrating, because, okay, wait, I am doing this now, and it's still an issue. So it's like what I was doing is almost as if it wasn't even appreciated. And it doesn't feel good to be somewhere where you're not wanted. To be somewhere where one of the people there don't want you there. That is not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling to be somewhere where you're not wanted. That's just not a good feeling at all. And like I said, that song I was listening to, during that time when I was in that environment, when it said, I am, who God says I am, I am chosen, not forsaken, I am who you say I am. And because basically I had to pretty much plead the blood of Jesus over my mind. And I also had to rebuke every negative word spoken over me and accusations and stuff like that as well. So it would be times where it was one time where I had literally got home, and this one person, we had got home at around the same time, and they went in the house, shut the door, locked the door, and then I was coming. They saw me coming. So I literally had to come, open the door, and I had to get my key out and open the door. So it would be petty stuff like that, and it was just like, okay. And most times I would just try to be silent. I would try to be quiet, and it was just to a point where it's like, okay, this is just getting to be too much. There would be times where I would be breaking down. I remember it was like right before Thanksgiving when I was there. It wasn't 2022, because that's when it was over, but it was either in 2020 or I believe it was 2021. But I remember praying and asking God to get me out of there before Thanksgiving. And it didn't happen in 2021, but it happened in 2022. So that's what I'm saying. God answered my prayer. It wasn't the way I was expecting to go, but, get out of there. He definitely answered. But like I said, that one of those Thanksgivings, it was either 2020 or 2021, where I think it was just me and that one person there. And we was just in the kitchen. I came in the kitchen, getting my food together, minding my business again. And they was just going on about, just going on. You don't pay no rent. You don't pay no bills here. You don't do this. You don't do this. Like I said, I was paying rent. I was doing what I know how to do. But they kept complaining pretty much. They kept complaining. It's pretty much like what I was doing. It wasn't even being appreciative anyway. So for all that, might as well do nothing, because if you're saying I'm doing nothing anyway, but I'm washing the dishes, I'm sweeping the floor, I'm vacuuming, cleaning, I'm paying the $300 that y'all asked for. That's what y'all asked for. So that's what I'm paying. So don't say I don't pay no rent if I'm paying 300. So it was just it was really frustrating. I'm gonna just be straight up honest with y'all. And it was just, it was hard. It was hard. And I remember, like I said, I remember that time that right before that Thanksgiving, it was either 2020 or 2021 where we really had kind of got into it, when I was in the kitchen, and then that person was in the kitchen, and they was going on and on and on and on and on. I believe that may have been the day when they said your parents don't want you, your family don't. It was something. I don't know if that was the day they had said that person had said that. That may have been the day, but either way, we had got into it, and it left me in tears. And here I am trying to. Thanksgiving was literally about to come, and that makes you like, well, you don't even want to be in this environment for Thanksgiving. So it was a lot. It really was a lot. Phew. But God was with me. God helped me through it. I think I was telling people about it. But it was nothing that nobody could do. I was trying to get out. I was doing my best. It's not like I was just sitting there trying to, I was really trying to get out. Like, I was calling social services. I was on waiting lists. And it's like, it's almost as they couldn't help me because I wasn't homeless. But the thing is, I was on the verge of being homeless if I didn't hurry up and get out. Like, the person would say things like, I don't want you here. Like, when it got towards the end in 2022, they was like, I don't want her here. I don't want her here. And their face was like, it was the enemy. Like, it was the enemy speaking through this person. I don't want her here. And it was, like I said, it was nothing I had did, so, it's almost like I had did something bad or something, but it was, like I said, it was definitely that spirit that was in that person that didn't like the spirit of God that's living inside of me, and so that was the issue. It was a spiritual thing. It wasn't a personal thing. It wasn't that they didn't like me. It was that spirit inside of them that didn't like the spirit of God living inside of me. So that's what that was. It's almost as that person had enough, almost as if that person had enough of the presence of God in the home. Because God is living inside of me, and people can tell, and that person could not stand it. Again, I don't believe they were a believer. So yeah. So I mean. Yeah, it was a lot for sure. It was definitely a lot, and that went on for 2 years. I remember, like, in 2020, it was June 2020. It was like one of the little kids, like a baby, I believe, maybe 2 or 3, was just running down the hall or whatever, and I had went in my room, and when I went in my room, I had slammed my door. And I didn't even know that the little baby's fingers was in the door. And so that was a complete honest mistake. And I had prayed and I asked God to forgive me because I know that was a mistake. But they took that to heart. Like, after that, they made it like I was the worst person ever. And maybe that could have what brought it on as well. Maybe a little bit, but I don't know. But I was like, you know what? They came running down. They came to that hall and they opened my door real fast. And whatever they said, they were yelling, they were screaming, and they were mad, boy. They were heated. I said, it was a mistake. It was a mistake. I didn't mean to do it. It was a mistake. And then the person would say, yeah, you don't take care of the kids. You don't watch the kids around here. Talk about the children the 2 children that was in the house that weren't mine. And so they would pretty much make it like it was my responsibility to do these things, but if nobody asked me, and then again, I'm not good with babies and stuff either. So, because I don't have any little brothers or little sisters. All I have is a brother, and he's way old. He's older than me. Not way older, but he's older than me. So, yeah, it was a lot. It definitely was a lot. So I just want to encourage you all that for those that are living in toxic environments to not take it personal. Because most times it don't even have anything to do with you. That person is dealing with their own battles, their own demons. And so it comes off on you, so don't take it personal. Don't think it's you that they don't like. but you have to pray against that spirit that's in them, that's trying to come against you, you know. So yeah, and just remember, like the saying says, hurt people hurt people, and that is definitely the truth. Hurt people hurt people. When people are hurting, they hurt people, you know. So you can tell when somebody like comes up to you, it could be at your job or anywhere, and they may come at you yelling and screaming and mad, and you ain't did a thing. But it don't even got nothing to do with you. It's just because of what they're going through, or because they've had a bad day, or they're having a bad life. So they take that out on you, because everybody doesn't know how to not take their emotions or their hurt and pain. Everybody doesn't know how to handle it. So they take it out on other people. Because what they say, misery loves company, hurt people hurt people. So keep that in mind as well. But just don't take it personal, and pray for them, I've forgiven them, in my heart, because none of them are in my life today, but, I've forgiven them, I have forgiven them. And even on the last day, like when I was forced out and I was homeless, or when the police were there and I got the domestic escort to get my belongings out the home, one of the persons that were there were saying, why didn't you tell me, that person was locking you out? I said, well, because when I would tell you things, you always would say things like, oh, I don't have no control. They're the person of the house, and, I can't control what they do or say when I'm not there. And, just things like that. So I had pretty much I was over it, and I pretty much just stopped, telling this person things. And she was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm sorry it had to end this way. I saw it coming. God got greater. Stay in touch. And then that was it. I was packing my stuff up, getting my stuff. My best friend was outside waiting, and I got my stuff in her car. She helped me. And then after that, we left. And I think we were about to go to the store. And just right before that, I had just broke down crying, because life had hit hard. Like, I was homeless. I didn't know what was going to happen next. I had nowhere to go, so I had lost a lot. And like I said, I was crying, I was breaking down, but, God used her. She prayed for me in that moment. She started praying. She comforted me. And I also want to encourage you as well to get you Christ-centered friendships, people that are going to be there for you when you are going through hard times, when you need strength, when you need somebody to pray for you. Get you some Christ-centered friendships that's going to be in your corner, And so she prayed, she comforted me, and I calmed down. And then we had went into Dollar Tree, and I had saw, God is just so good. We had went in Dollar Tree, and I had saw, I didn't see, my current supervisor had saw me in the store and was like, Shanice. And I looked, and I was like, hey. And I was like, I knew that was God. I know that was God letting me know that everything was going to be okay. And not just that. So I stayed at my best friend's house that night. They let me stay there that night. And then on that Sunday, I went to church that Sunday, which was November 20th, 2022. And it was so hard. I was heavy. Like, it was hard for me to praise and worship. Like, I was just so heavy. And God was still there, because even through the songs, he was speaking through the songs. Like, one of the songs was saying, like, he'll take what the enemy meant for your evil and he'll turn it for good. And I know that was God. I was like, oh my God, like God was speaking. And later on that day, or before that, someone had blessed me with like $50. I guess because of my situation, God probably led them to do it. And so later on that day, one of the ladies from church had took me to a store, but before, they also took me to Little Caesars, and I was going to get pizza because that's what I had wanted to get. So I was going to get the pizza, and I was giving them a $50 bill, and they didn't have change for that or something. So I was like, okay, I can't get the pizza. So I was about to leave, and they said, Here you go. Just go ahead and take it. And I know that was God again letting me know that he was there. Pizza is one of my favorite foods, and God was just letting me know I'm still here, even in the midst of this hard time. So also, I want to encourage you all that even in the midst of your hard times, God is still there. God promised that he would never leave nor having a relationship with Jesus is a lifelong relationship. It's a lifelong relationship. He never leaves us. He never forsakes us. He's there for us 24/7. He's there in the good and in the bad times. So God was with me even in the midst of living in a toxic environment. He was with me, or else I wouldn't have got through it. He carried me through it. Then I was homeless. He carried me through it. And even when I was homeless and when I was having my moments where I would, when it was fresh, when I would break down and where I would cry, but I still was talking to God. I was like, Lord, you know what? I thank you for getting me out of there. I was like, yeah, I thank you for getting me out of there. I thank you for freedom. I thank you for peace. And I was still praising God. I was still praising God. And I still had faith, and I still kept my faith in God, and I kept believing God. Even in the midst of being homeless, even in the midst of having negativity, I had family that were being negative. They were pretty much degrading me. I had a family member tell me that, you need to be in a group home, and they wasn't believing God like I was believing God, like when I was saying I'm believing God to bless me with a place and stuff. They didn't have the same faith as I did. They were negative. They were negative. They were degrading me. They made it seem like I was just, well, one of them had made it seem like I was just sitting back at the resort on vacation being lazy while she was working 40 hours a week, but that wasn't the case. I was in the resort because I was homeless. That's why I was in the resort. It wasn't I wasn't on vacation. I was there because I was homeless. I had nowhere else to go. So things like that. But in the midst of all of that, I kept my faith. I kept believing God. I kept going to church every Sunday that I could make it, that I had a ride. I kept praising God. I still was going to work in the midst of being homeless. I was leaving my resort and I was still going to work when I was scheduled. In the midst of being homeless, I still was going to work. I still was being kind and being nice, and I didn't take it out on other people. I still was being nice to people. It may have been times where my head might have been down, or I might have looked defeated, because of the situation that I was going through, because it was hard. It was hard, and I would talk to, people at work about it as well. And I know God had used them, to encourage me as well during that time. And even one of them was able to talk about their homeless journey, because they said that person had said they had been homeless. But I'm telling you, I've had a heart, for the homeless. Like when I see people on the street and stuff, but not like I do now. It's a whole different now. It's different now. Like when I see people on the street now, it hits different, because I know that it could have been me. It could have been me. Like I pray and I cry out for the homeless. I pray to God and ask God to provide for them, to bless them with the food and everything, that the shelter, everything it is that they need. As we get ready to come into this holiday season, and as people are celebrating and they're getting ready to come together with their families, and just we have to remember those people that are less fortunate than us. We have to remember those people that just lost loved ones. We have to remember those people that just lost loved ones. I just had someone, I know her mother just passed away. Here it is, Thanksgiving is next week. We have to remember those people that are grieving right now, that are dealing with loss right now, that this will be their first Thanksgiving without having that loved one at the table. We have to remember them. We have to remember the people that are on the street. We have to remember the people that are homeless, in hotels, in their cars. We have to remember them. We have to remember them. We have to remember them. We have to pray and ask God to comfort them, to send somebody their way to help them. And we want to be a blessing. However God leads us to be a blessing to them, whether it's financially, whatever, we have to be a blessing. God has blessed us to be a blessing. God has blessed us to be a blessing. So yes, we want to be the hands and feet of Jesus. We want to be the hands and feet of Jesus. you know. So yeah. So as we're getting ready, as most of us, some of us are getting ready to, celebrate Thanksgiving next week, and a lot of us are excited, and then some people are not so excited. Some people are going through really hard times, and I understand, because in 2022 Thanksgiving I was homeless. Right before Thanksgiving I had became homeless. My whole life had changed, right before Thanksgiving, you know? So when 2023 Thanksgiving came, Thanksgiving will always hit different after being homeless, So I'm just like, I can feel for those people that are dealing with homelessness right now. People that have just lost their homes, or just been evicted, or just been forced out of a toxic environment. Whatever the situation is, at the end of the day, it's still homeless, you know? And homeless people, they're no less than us. Homeless people are no less than us. You know, they deserve to have a nice hot meal just like we do. You know, they deserve to have food. They deserve to have shelter. They deserve to have what we have. So don't look down on a homeless person. When you see a homeless person, don't look down on them. When you see a homeless person on the street, don't look down on them, because none of us are better than the next. None of us are better. And our situation could be just like that. Don't look down on them. Pray for them. See how you can help them. Be led by the Holy Spirit. So, yeah. So I just pray that you guys have been encouraged as I shared, some of my testimony concerning living in a toxic living environment, bits and pieces of it. Just a little bit, just enough for it to be transparent, just to encourage, just to encourage those that are living in toxic living environments, toxic living environments, abusive relationships. I hope you have been encouraged. And I just pray that you guys have a beautiful, blessed Tuesday. God bless all of you.